and we are on Book Talk. Book Talk, and I am your host, Anthony Mwerore, and I am welcoming each and every one of you. And as always, at Book Talk, we get to have an author who tells us his story or her story, and tell us about a book or many books that she or he might have written. And today is no exception. We have a guest with us who is known as Grace Tinsen. And I hope I got that right.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Grace Tinsen is going to tell us about herself and a book that she's written, which is called Thrive Beyond Divorce. Now, it basically talks about financial independence. So if you're interested on the money topic, this is your show. And we are going to get it right from the author. And before I take much more time, I would like to welcome Grace to the show. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and we are really honored to have you here. And before we get into the book, we'd like to know a bit about yourself, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have been an entrepreneur all of my life, and I've built 2 careers as an entrepreneur. I had a very, very successful real estate business early on and built our family into a giant lifestyle. And then through my own divorce and a deep recession at the same time, I went completely broke. And so that caused me to figure out what's next. And a good friend of mine, I had a mentor at the time because I really had no plan B, advised me to get into the financial field. And I thought, that's weird advice. I had just gone broke. What credibility would I have? And he said, and this was the most important piece of advice I've ever gotten. He said, don't think like that. Because you can listen, apply those principles that you learned to yourself, and then you can help people for the rest of your life. And, that's just a piece of advice that resonated with me. So that's what I did. And I went on to create a very successful business there. I did spend most of my 25-year career as an advisor in the divorce market. It's just, that's where I was drawn. That's where my personal story took root. And then I sold my practice in 2016 and then ended up writing the book in 2018 because I thought it was a story. It's really a story of redemption. How do you start over from nothing? If, a lot of people have been displaced out of jobs from the pandemic, through divorce, through death. And for women are particularly vulnerable, although the messages in my book about the pathway to financial independence is good for both men and women, and it doesn't depend on divorce. So if you're looking to get to financial independence for any reason, it's a book for everyone.
Oh, wonderful. And you talk about building a business, a family business. When you say family business, you say it's a business that you mean it's a business that you build with your husband?
Nope, he had nothing to do with any of it, ever.
Yeah.
I built it by myself. And it wasn't, and I don't want to give the impression that starting over when I literally lost everything was quick or easy. It is not. There's no magic soup but I learned deep principles and I built it brick by brick while I was building my financial practice. But no, husband had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Ever.
I get it. So when you lost it, the husband was not like, that's your ex-husband, I guess. Had nothing to complain about. I mean, you lost a business, so he did not hold you on accountability.
Yeah. So here's how it works. I was in California, and during the time I built that real estate career, I just made a ton of money. I was earning 3 times what my husband earned. And then when the divorce happened, because of the laws of that state, you have to equalize whatever wealth you've created so that both parties, well, the way it works out, if you're the big earner and all of a sudden your income ends, it doesn't matter. They go back and look at your record. So the net result of that was I had to, I chose to refinance our house. I pulled out all the equity to pay him a big cash settlement. And at the end of the day, the house lost value. The recession crashed the value of the house. It ended the real estate industry in California for a period of several years. And so I had no income and no assets. So I got a foreclosure and bankruptcy. He got all the tax-free cash.
Wow. Okay, I get that. So you found yourself with nothing and nowhere to look at. And many people find themselves there, and then their story continues to go down and down. But we are happy for you that you found your way up. And this is why we have you here, because you're going to tell us some secrets of how you found yourself up again. And
Well,
yes,
okay.
yeah, please
Okay.
do.
Yeah. So anytime we suffer great loss, whether it's personal loss, maybe the death of a loved one, more than 500,000 people in the US have lost loved ones. Some of those people, a lot of those people were wage earners. And anytime you find yourself in a position where you lose everything, what feels like everything, you get to a point where you meet yourself very closely. There's a choice right there. And I could look at my situation. I left California with $1,000 to start over with.
Okay.
That's nothing. That's nothing. That won't even get you in an apartment anywhere.
Yeah,
I don't think. But here's where you meet yourself. I had to look at my situation. I said, look, I'm either going to despair myself to death because of this loss, or I have to find my way out. I'm either going to move under the bridge, or I'm going to beat this thing and figure it out. And so, choice A was not a choice for me. And so that's so the first thing I did is, meet myself and say, what is my situation? What resources do I have to work with? What do I have any family support or any support anywhere else that can help me through this? In my case, I did not. So it was strictly up to my own, ingenuity and personal resources to figure it out. And I was grieving. I mean, it's not easy emotionally. So you're doing two things. You're trying to manage your difficult emotions, and you're trying to rebuild something. That's when I reached out. So the first piece of advice I would give anyone, if you find yourself in that situation, is look around you and see what your resources are. Do you have personal resources, relationships, family, things that you can sell? Do you have a room that you can rent? I mean, there's short-term things that you can do to give yourself a little breathing room so that you can do the next thing. And as I already mentioned, my best move was to consult with somebody who wasn't in my situation. He was very, very successful, had been a friend of mine for a long time. And, I went to him, with all humility, and I said, I have just lost everything. I don't know what to do. And what would you do if you were in my situation? That was the question. And that's a question that allows for creativity to come out. Ask the most successful people what would they do in a similar situation? And you'll be amazed at the creative idea that can come from that. As I mentioned, I initially discounted his advice, thinking, I've just gone broke. I would have no credibility. Who would listen to me to advise them in matters of finance? And he challenged me. He said, don't think like that. And so that's the other thing you have to do. Ask for advice and then take it. Because, when you are in emotional distress because of loss, you're not in the best position to navigate yourself. So everybody has resources somewhere, somebody that you can go to and ask, what would they do if they were in your situation? So that's the first place to go.
Yeah, and in all these, because I'm wondering to myself, and it's good to make it clear to us, in all this, there are no children involved. I mean, you didn't have children in the family. I mean, with your husband, or did you?
Yeah, so my birth family, my mom and my dad both had passed away. I didn't have any family that I could go back to.
Okay.
And obviously my ex-husband wasn't about to now turn around and give me the money back, because that's the law.
Okay.
And so, so that in my case, so I guess the real value in my story is that I truly didn't have resources, but I had this one friend, this one successful friend
Mhm.
that advised me, and that was the step out, that I got to step out because of that. So even in without family, without any other kind of support, I did have one friend that was really successful,
Okay.
and I credit all the success that came after that absolutely to him.
Okay. I was asking whether there were some children, you had children to look
I
after.
did.
Ah, you did. That's what I'm, because when you're going through, how many children, if I may ask, just
I have only one. At the time we went through the divorce, he was 13. So it was a difficult age for him,
yeah.
and part of the mistakes that I made that caused me to go broke. I didn't have to go broke. That's the other message here. But
Mm.
I made mistakes. I made mistakes thinking, I've made a ton of money. I can always make money. I'll get this figured out. I'll just pay him all the money and all. Well, the truth is, in the middle of a deep recession, I'm not a magic maker, and I couldn't do it. I
Mhm.
couldn't do it.
Mhm.
So that's the other piece of advice that I would offer anyone is, especially if you're in the middle of a divorce or a death, get some professional help. Don't rely on your own ability to make decisions at that time if you're very emotional and you're not going to see things as clearly. A better advice for me would have been sell the house, split the equity, however it gets split, and then go on, rather than you know refinancing, pulling out all the cash, and then the value goes to nothing and you lose everything. So there's mistakes that I made. It wasn't just circumstances that took me down, but that was the other big mistake that I made, is not seeking out the right kind of professional help trying to unravel this situation. It
Yeah.
was my fault. It was my fault that I went as broke as I did.
Yeah, and when you say about, you talk about making mistakes, we all make mistakes, and we all find ourselves down through the mistakes that we may have made, and sometimes something out of our control. Like now, everyone is going through this challenge that is worldwide, and the pandemic, so to say. Some are losing jobs, some are getting their businesses, I mean, they are
Right.
losing their businesses.
Yeah.
And you find yourself, so either through the mistakes or through the unforeseen circumstances that cause you to get down there, what you're telling us is to look for some advice, to ask questions, questions that could get you from where you are to where you want to be. And yeah. Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. And also recognize that when you're experiencing loss of any type, it has an emotional impact, and you
Yeah.
may not be in the best position to just, we panic sometimes and we go, do this, then do that, then do this, then do that, rather
Mhm.
than having somebody, sit you down, take a deep breath. Let me help you assess where you are and what resources you might have, because when you're emotional, you can't always think of those things. And so, more than any other thing, reaching out to ask for help is the best advice I can do, and not just rely on your own decision-making power in such important issues.
Mm, good. And so you found yourself way up again and you wrote the book, Thrive Beyond Divorce, Mastering the Money Game, Discovering Your Purpose and Offering Your Genius to the World. Here is the book that we are discussing. And Mastering the Money Game. This is the most crucial part, and I say, of our life, because, I mean, we may not, how do I put it? Money matters in very many areas of our life. We have to eat, we have to go to school. I mean, to take our kids to school, we have to wear, to dress, and have a roof over our head. So money is such an important part. So how do you master this game?
Well, a couple things. Money is very important because money isn't everything, but it does equal freedom to a certain extent.
Yeah.
We want to have freedom from worry. We want to have freedom from, crises that may hit us that we're unprepared for. And so this book that I wrote chronicles what did I do at first, and then what did I do, and then what did I do. But
Yeah.
again, it was gathering resources. I stayed with a friend for a small amount of time until I could figure out what city I was going to land in. And then I moved to the city that I live in now. I didn't know a single soul. And then you have to figure out that part. Now I'm here. I don't have an income or money or savings. What do I do to get money right away? So one decision that I made right in there, get a roommate, half my housing cost.
Yeah.
It's little decisions like that all along the way. And then as I learned and I grew and my business started to grow, you build upon that brick by brick, decision by decision, but it's a whole series of important small decisions that will take you to financial independence.
Yeah, and I kind of imagine how hard it is for someone who's had it all, someone who's been up there, to come down again and start looking for options that could be, I mean, someone could be scared of, someone could be shy of, like going to look for a roommate, someone who was owning a house, and not just a house, but a big house. And it takes courage, it takes some strength of a kind. So I believe, yeah.
Well, here's the other really important message that I can share is, do not let your ego, cost you your future. It is very humbling to go broke. I went from big house, pool, tennis court, Mercedes, fat lifestyle to nothing, and so, that's another thing you have to do early is humble yourself.
Yeah.
Humble yourself enough to ask for help, and then have them help you navigate some decisions. So it's where there's a lot of personal growth involved in mastering the money game.
Yeah.
A lot of it's right up here. We all arrive in our adulthood with a certain money mindset based on the family that you came from. If your family was extremely poor and money was hard to come by, and you often had nothing, you grow up with a mindset that says money is hard to make. I'm not worth making a lot of money. And it will lead you down certain paths where it keeps you there. So understanding that this is a mental game, first of all.
Okay.
By the same token, if you were born in an affluent family, you always had enough, you could see that, money wasn't that hard to make, and your parents might have mentored you a bit on some success principles.
Yeah.
You grow up with a different kind of mindset, and that carries on. So that's one of the first things too, is to observe your own mind. What is your money mindset? What is your mind, what sort of beliefs have you borrowed probably from someone else about what is true about money? And so once you're aware of that, then you can see where you need to do some work, because again, this is a mental game above all else.
Yeah.
I can teach, you can read in any book how to make a budget, how to plan this, how to do that. But if you've got the wrong money mindset, you can read 1,000 books on those things. It won't mean anything to you. You have to be willing to tackle your own mindset and get to the bottom of it, and then start to correct the way that you think if you've got some self-defeating money thoughts.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it's the mindset that is going to determine where you go from here to where you want to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you see just the bit that I've told you, it was the beginning of a complete transformation of my relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was making all of that money down in California, I was also spending a ton because I was unhappy in my marriage. You know, women will typically overeat or overshop if they're very emotionally unhappy. And
Mm-hmm.
that was me. I shopped, you know, so I was dropping $1,000 a week sometimes at Nordstrom,
Yeah.
you know, for stuff I didn't need. And
Yeah.
so it's also coming to grips with that. You know, what are your saving and spending habits?
Mm-hmm.
What is your relationship with money? And if you find that you consistently earn but consistently don't have money, you got to put some work in right there, because you know you're not going to find a quick and easy answer in anybody's book, including mine. But
Yeah.
if you're willing to grapple with your own belief system and your mindset, and look at your spending habits with a critical eye. So
Mm-hmm.
I have all the steps to do that are in the book, like where to start and how to start to track, so that you really get a clear and accurate picture of what's coming in and what's going out and what you can adjust.
Oh, okay. And there's a gap that I want us to very well understand. We have that here you have the money, and you lose the money, and again you have the money. Now in this gap where you don't have the money and you've been successful in business, and again on this other end you are successful in business, and as we know it, business takes capital. So how does this gap connect from loss of capital to another capital?
Yep. Well, that's a really good point. So remember, I took my friend's advice to get into the financial field. So the
Okay.
costs involved with getting in that field are education. You
Mhm.
have to re-educate yourself in that field. So there was some education costs. There is licensing fees to get licensed to sell securities
Mhm.
and financial products.
Mhm.
So it's not a high capital demand business, but it does require something. So one of the early decisions I also made is, my beautiful shiny navy blue Mercedes, sold it,
Mhm.
and even though I put a couple 100,000 miles on it, I still got 20 grand out of it. That was the money that I started over with. So
Okay.
that was a humbling day. That was another day to meet my own humility when I traded in my beautiful Mercedes for a 1987 Screaming Chevy Nova, ironically the same color. So,
Mhm.
and then at that point, I had to just sort of laugh at it, because it's like, well, here we are, we're starting over.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to set your pride aside and say, the only thing I crawled out of California with was that car and $1,000. And I sold that car right away. And that gave me a little running room, gave me enough time and money to get through education and get myself licensed. And then the business was about acquiring clients.
Okay.
And so that's how it worked in my case. But again, it's the same message. You have to see what resources you have.
Okay.
If you've got a decent car, sell it and buy a less expensive car. If you have, an extra room for somebody, get a roommate. Simple things like that are within your power to decide on. That's how you do it.
And the other question is, in this gap, there is no job anywhere. I mean, it didn't come to a point where you say, I've got this money, I've sold my car, and the money is still running out. So in order for me to sustain the flow, I have to look for a job somewhere. You didn't look for a job?
So here's another, maybe it's what's right about me, but it might be also my limitation.
Mhm.
I am just hardwired to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Honestly, I've been one my whole life. I don't really know how to go get a job. I
Okay.
don't know what I would put on. Well, I've been a successful entrepreneur. What does that qualify me for?
Yeah.
Well, in my mind, it would qualify me to be another kind of successful entrepreneur, and that's what I pursued. But again, if you've had it, I mean, now is an excellent time to find a job. A lot of people are walking. the pay scale is too low for, you can't make a living wage on what a lot of companies are paying.
Mhm.
And so again, you have to look at your resources. Can you, find maybe another job in your field that pays more, or a combination? Typically it's a combination of things. It's not just one thing. I'm going to get some fat job that will pay me a lot and everything will be fine. Usually it doesn't work that way, but if you do a combination of things, lower your overhead, get a roommate or get into a less expensive housing situation,
Okay.
get a grip on your transportation. You usually have to do 4 or 5 things at once in order to pull all those ends to the middle.
Yeah, okay. So in your case, because you've been an entrepreneur all your life, uh, I wouldn't ask you to compare entrepreneurship with the employment, but so if I wouldn't ask you to compare the two, uh, I would ask, why would you encourage someone to be an entrepreneur?
Well, the truth is I wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily.
Mm.
What I believe to be true, and just working with people all my life, is that you're either hardwired to work for somebody, or
Okay.
you're completely a rogue and unable to work for anybody, so you must work for yourself.
Mhm.
I fall into that latter category.
Okay.
Not everybody's designed. I would never advise that the way of the entrepreneur is right for everyone, because it is not.
Yeah.
Some people, I am remarried now. My husband is absolutely hardwired. He's a salaried engineer,
Okay.
and that's what he knows and that's what he loves.
Uh-huh.
And he in no way, shape, or form would take the risk associated with being an entrepreneur, where your income is up and down and up and down. He and I we're designed differently.
Okay.
I have the tolerance for that kind of change,
Mhm.
and it's forced me to really be careful with my budget, to manage my income and my outgoes very carefully. But he's not designed that way. So that's the first thing is, recognize, how are you designed?
Mhm.
Are you a risk taker? Are you fearless on some level?
Mhm.
Then, look at entrepreneurism, because that's where you can become truly wealthy. It's very difficult to become wealthy as a salaried person, but that's not everybody's desire either. You
Okay.
might have a very comfortable living
Yeah.
as a salaried employee, and especially if you're playing to your skill set. If that's how you're designed and you have something that's fulfilling, then perfect. Perfect. So again, it's all about self-awareness and understanding how you're designed, what your tolerance for risk is, and what your skills are, and what other skills you could acquire to maybe put yourself in a higher income bracket.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for that. And now, when you talk about being an entrepreneur and going through that phase of up, down, and up and down, there is someone out there who may be thinking that, yes, you found yourself down once and that was enough. So when you talk about the entrepreneur journey of up, down, it doesn't end with that one flat down. You will still experience some losses along the way, even after you are successful, and you've got to know how to handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. I picked, ironically, this advice that I got to go into the financial services field,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is absolutely one of the hardest businesses on earth, for
Mhm.
many reasons. It's quite technical. You have to know a lot, and you have to continually educate yourself. You have to, acquiring clients takes time. The
Yeah.
way most, it requires relationships of trust.
Mhm.
When I'm brand new to an area and I don't know anyone, and so I don't have any relationships of trust. You have to build that.
Mhm.
So my first step in that business was to get as I'm licensing and getting 4 or 5 different technical licenses to be in the financial field. There was a little health insurance product that was available in our state that was wildly popular.
Mhm.
And I found that company, I got appointed with them, and it was for small business. But it also, one of the things that made it so popular in my area is that it was a health insurance policy that would pay chiropractors and acupuncturists and chiropractors and all sorts of alternative healers, which are very, very popular here.
Mhm.
So that's, I looked out there and I said, this is something I can get behind because it's a product that everybody wanted. So what I did is I got up every day, I went out and pounded the pavement, and I went to all these little business parks,
Okay.
introduced myself to the manager, left him a little bit of information about this, this great insurance policy. And many of them became clients, and those were my first relationships. And then when I had all my securities licenses, I could go back to those same businesses and say, now I can put in place your 401k and your group insurance plans and all of that stuff. So I built it brick by brick. It wasn't quick and it wasn't easy. It was 10 years before I hit six figures again.
Mm.
So that's the other thing. You have to have a long tolerance for, if you're going to go the entrepreneur route, you have to have a good tolerance for how long it's going to cost more than you think, and it will take longer than you think.
Yeah, and it's good to know that everything takes time. And
Sure.
yeah, we watch things, and nature teaches us along of a lot of things. That's what I usually say. When I look at a tree, when I look at a plant that you put a seed in the ground and you wait for months and years before it brings fruit, that applies to life too in other areas. In business, it applies to family. So someone needs to be a patient person.
Yeah, it does. And so again, you have to, what causes someone to have the grit, and this is if you're thinking about entrepreneurism, these are the really important questions you're going to want to ask yourself. Do I have the grit? Do I have the courage? Do I have the stick-to-itiveness that when this gets really, really hard, I'm not going to give up on myself?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people, if they've never been an entrepreneur, they don't know the answer to that question, and then they find out later on. But there's ways that you can, kind of test that out, taking smaller steps along the way. So perhaps one, I throw myself off the cliff regularly because I'm a risk taker. I'm into the big risk, big reward track, but that's not everybody by a long shot.
Yeah.
Another gentler way that you can approach that is get some kind of paying job, any kind of paying job, any kind of paying job, just to kind of give you a base income. And then you have to maybe build your entrepreneurial business after hours or on the weekends or on your free time, which means that you're going to have to sacrifice some of your free time in order to build your empire on the other side. But, I'll continually bring you back to that question. What's the alternative?
Yeah.
Do I just sit here and suffer and be broke all my life? Or am I willing to, really put the pedal to the metal and, challenge myself to stick with this and to work hard and give up my free time for possibly quite a long time, in order to build something? And those are the important questions that you're going to want to ask early on.
So it's just a matter of questions.
Yeah, and you see how everything that I brought up so far gets back to mindset.
Yeah.
Every single piece, every single piece.
It all goes back.
Yeah, a magic budget isn't going to solve this. How you think, and how you're willing to change the way you think, and change your relationship with money. That's what's going to get you to success.
And what I want to believe is that my relationship to money is going to come from the relationships with people that I have, because someone said that your total income is dependent is dependent on the 5 contacts that you are constantly with. I mean, if you are with someone who has a different mindset from you, someone who's always thinking about poverty, and someone who thinks that money is hard to come by, then that's what you're going to acquire.
Absolutely. That is very, very true. You become the combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So, when you're trying to rebuild something, seek out people that are way more successful than you are,
Mhm.
and make a relationship with them, spend time with them, take them to lunch, ask them if you can interview them. People love to be interviewed,
They do?
and especially people that have become really successful because they've probably put their heart and soul into something and they've learned some things along the way.
Yeah.
So, if you don't have a relationship with them and you want to have a relationship with them, it's flattering to come to somebody and say, may I, I noticed that you're successful in this and this and this. Would you be willing to sit down with me for a half hour so I can ask you some questions about how you became successful? You'll
Mhm.
be amazed at what you can dig up out of that. You
Ah,
just have to have the courage to pick up the phone or approach somebody, go to a business meeting and find the most successful person in the room and ask them if you can interview them.
really? Something is a good thing to know that people are willing to help. People are willing to give out. They give out their secrets. I mean, you approach someone who's been very successful in business and he tells you the secrets of how he got there.
Well, and it's so number one, not everybody that you approach will agree to it. Don't take it personally and don't get your little feelings hurt. Go
Okay.
to the next person, go to the next person. But the thing is, most successful people are happy to share some of the things. I mean, I'm not asking you to tell me the trade secrets of your company. What
Yeah.
I'm asking you for is, how did you develop yourself? How did you think of this? And then what inspired you to do that? That's the kind of questions that people love to answer, that
Mhm.
are not going to give away all their company secrets or threaten them in that way. But people will love to tell you, how did I develop myself in order to reach the success that I've had?
Ah, that's beautiful. Now, you talk about you succeeding by knocking on doors and talking about what you have to offer, your genius. And how will someone else who's in a different area from you offer their genius to the world?
Good question. So I didn't have that. I didn't even have that as a goal early on. I was
Mhm.
just trying to survive.
Okay.
So when I was in that stage, I just had to look to do the next thing. How am I going to survive? How am I going to build this? How am I going to acquire more clients? How am I going to make better relationships? How do I inspire my existing clients to give me referrals?
Mhm.
Those, I was dealing with the day-to-day, brick by brick building. But as I became successful again,
Mhm.
what started to occur to me is that because it changed, it transformed my personal relationship with money.
Yeah.
I thought, money is good. It gives us some security and some freedom,
Mhm.
but it's not the only thing. I said, now I've been given the gift, and I didn't see it that way for a long time. I've been given the gift of this really painful experience,
Yeah.
and I found a way out. I have an obligation to share with people what I learned along the way in order to acquire something when I had nothing. And
Mhm.
that has given meaning and purpose to my life. So you won't get to that question if you're in struggle, but keep it in mind, keep it on the horizon, that what you learn and how you will change yourself will be a gift to other people that are coming up behind you that are dealing with the same struggle. And you might have a golden key to help them reach that next level. And I believe we as human beings, we are one human family here. I believe we have an obligation to figure out what our gifts are and offer them back to the world. And offer them back to the world. That will give you a life of meaning and purpose, which is as important or maybe even more important than the money.
Oh, thank you very much. And we thank you for offering us this gift that you've given unto us, this book that you've written, Thrive Beyond Divorce. And as I can hear when you're describing it, it's not only those people who are divorced that should read this book. Has got some great nuggets for any person that would look to improve himself in the area of finances.
Yeah, I originally, because my client base was largely female, I sort of targeted that in my initial message, but I have as many men reading the book now as women, and there's a universal feedback that this book is not just for women, and it's not just for people who are divorcing. It's
Yeah.
for everyone. It's for everyone who wants to lead a life with meaning and purpose, who wants to get to a more secure place of financial independence. It applies, it has a wide application. So if you're not female and you're not in a divorce, consider it anyway, because there will be something in there that you might be able to apply to your own situation.
Oh, wonderful. And please give us a wrap up of the book. Give us like a summary or something that may get the person to really understand the whole idea of this book, in short.
In short, I believe everyone needs to master the money game, not just women. Men and women need to master the money game. We're in a time of real crisis, I think, in the world for a lot of different reasons. And if you are poor and struggling, and unable to even help yourself, you'll never be able to help someone else. But if we stick together, we share our knowledge with each other unselfishly, we're willing to, take whatever success we've had and then reach a hand back and pull somebody else up,
Yeah.
our world will simply be a better place.
Mhm.
So that's the overarching message, is it's worth figuring out what you have to offer, that you can help somebody else, because I promise you that that's as satisfying, if not more satisfying, than just the security that comes with financial independence.
Oh, wonderful. And helping other people gets you helped too.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
but also keep in mind that you won't get to those questions until you're a little further along. If you're really struggling now and you really don't have much of anything,
Yeah.
you don't have to jump right to how do I help humanity when I'm still struggling myself. So you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
handle your own business first,
Yeah.
and then, make note of what you learned along the way. How did you have to transform yourself? How
Mhm.
did you have to learn how to make decisions differently? How did you think about, expenses and earning differently? Those are the real lessons that other people can benefit from, because they're universal. My situation was unique to me, yours will be unique to you.
Yeah.
But what you've learned about how you change yourself, is the gift that you can give to the world, no matter what you're doing,
Mhm. In every area of your
every
life.
area.
Yeah, and if you find yourself, and you can always be ready to offer something to the world once you found
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. But take care of yourself first,
Yeah.
but then look beyond. Don't just stay there. This is where a lot of people, I think, get stuck. And I did too in my former career. I got addicted to earning money. I thought, oh man, I made this. I remember writing to a friend after I had already been out there for a while, and I was making more money than I wrote to a friend of mine from my hometown. I saying, it's just amazing. I pay more in taxes now than I ever earned in my life. I was just all blown up with my own magnificence about how much money I was making.
Yeah.
And the truth is, and I became addicted to that, instead of saying, what do I want this money to do for our family? What
Mhm.
kind of legacy do I want to leave? Is it all about just acquiring? The answer is no, because
Yeah.
money can come and money can go. You better be developing yourself along the way, and it'll have a lot more meaning for you if you look to see what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind when you're no longer here. What will people say of you and what you contributed? Those are good questions to spend a little time with.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good. And it's good when you've been somewhere, you can always find your way back again to where you've been. So you found yourself to where you were before, and you put it in this book. And for someone who's down there, you can always follow someone who's been there and out of it. And this is why you need to read this book, Thrive Beyond Divorce by Grace Tinsen. And where
Thank
can we
you.
find it?
It's on Amazon. You can,
Yeah.
it's on Amazon, a paperback, but there's an audio version there too, if you prefer audio. It's a downloadable, and you can also, many people are into podcasts and audiobooks these days. So there is an Audible version if you want the Audible version.
Okay, it's the versions, Audible, online,
Yeah,
paperback. Yeah, that's good. Thank you very
yeah.
much for offering it to us.
Well,
And we
no.
really appreciate you taking this time to come and talk to us about it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we also appreciate every viewer, every listener who is listening out there. Thank you for your time. And we pray that you're going to thrive anyway, whether you've been down or whether you've been there somewhere in the middle, you're going to thrive more. This is what we desire of you. So please go read the book, Thrive Beyond Divorce by Grace Tinsen. Yeah, this has been your host, Anthony Morore, and it's been quite a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And bye for now.